Hey, thanks for stopping by the channel. Welcome to Minnesota Robe Regiment. I subscribe either at the subscribe bar down there or on the little banner at the bottom of the screen. In the little corner of the video. Like, comment, and share. I do not do videos like this very often. I'd like to say that I can do videos like this more often, but unfortunately, I'm just in a position where I can't do videos like this very often. And so I really want to say thank you to the Steele County Times and reporter Kay Fate for her factual and accurate, unbiased, neutrally reported article from the Monday night, Monday the 30th of August in the Owatonna school board meeting. And we're going to look at her article here. We're going to read through it. And then I'm going to just ask you to hearken back to the video that I did about the Owatonna People's Press and the young lady who wrote that piece, and think about exactly just how skewed and inaccurate her reporting was. And there was a further Twitter exchange between her and I and Angie Langley after the fact, where she defended her neutrality and she defended her reporting and she defended her inaccurate statements and made me out, especially to have attacked her and to have manipulated the truth of what had happened and attacked her on a personal level. And none of that's true. I attacked her reporting and called it what it is, which was a lack of journalistic integrity and really ultimately yellow journalism. And what we're going to look at today from Kay is absolutely a demonstration of a reporter who has done their due diligence, whether they have a bias or a agenda. They do not allow that to play in. So let's just take a look at how Kay handled this. So this was written on Wednesday the 1st and posted by Kay Fate. She's a staff writer. And she says here, it was another packed house Monday, but it went more smoothly than nearly everyone expected. If the public forum was any indication, the crowd was about evenly split between those who supported the Owatonna School Board and the equity efforts and those who were concerned and disappointed citizens, as one woman put it. But after a rocky start to the meeting, the rules laid out by Board Chair Mark Sebring, no slander, no profanity, no name calling, and no interrupting, were allowed. I do want to touch on this. A school board, and I have been saying this to people for months, a school board is not obligated to have a public forum. A city council and a county commission, they're not obligated to have a public forum. However, once they do allow a public forum, they cannot restrict the content as long as the content of the public forum is related directly to the business of the school board. And that doesn't mean just the business that night, but in general, a business that a school board would be addressing, or that has something directly to do with the school and the impact of the school board's decisions. And we saw that played out in Angie Langley's comments, which will be coming up in a future video, where she specifically addressed the inappropriate content of an interview that Jeff Elstead, superintendent of the Owatonna Public Schools, had conducted with the Barbershop Conversation crew over in Rochester, Minnesota, where he referred to his staff as all of them being either knowingly or unknowingly racist, and that all of the city of Owatonna was guilty of racism. And we know when the term racism is used, it is specifically talking about white people, because racism, as it is defined today, can only white people can be guilty of that, because racism in their eyes means power and position, power and availability, and yada yada yada. So Sebring cannot lay out rules of no cursing and no slander, because how do you define it? No profanity, no name calling, no interrupting, no slander. The interrupting is a decorum issue, and I would not recommend that people use decorum, or would not use that interruption aspect. But slander, how do you define slander in a public forum? Uh, in profanity, free speech is free speech. And if somebody comes up there and they're fired up and they want to use the word, and I'll be damned, or um, this, excuse the terminology, but this shit's got to stop, that's protected speech. And no public servant can shut that down. That's been ruled. That either you can't. There again, I don't recommend it, and I wouldn't recommend it, and I wouldn't use it in that situation. But you can't shut that down. So anyway, that being said, but after a rocky start to the meeting, the rules laid out by board chair Mark Sebring, no slander, no profanity, no name calling, no interrupting, were followed. The crowd of more than 80 exceeded the fire marshal's limit of 70 before the district boardroom, meaning some people had to leave the room. Cabinet members and the press should step out, said T.C. Pearson of Rochester, who guides parent groups in their protests of critical race theory. That's a direct quote. Juxtapose that with Owatonna People's Press, and she said that I said that they should be forced to leave, or something to that effect, but it was an inaccurate statement. How about everybody who doesn't have a child in the district leave, another man said. What does it matter? We're taxpayers. The state of Minnesota pays these wages. And ultimately, it kind of does come down to that, Pearson said. He said after the meeting that for the past 2 months, at least 8 people have asked respectfully for a change of venue for the board meetings, and they wouldn't do it. This reporter took her time to stop and have this conversation, something that the reporter from the Owatonna People's Press did not do. Of the 20 people who took advantage of their 3 minutes to address the board members, 4 of them were students who had taken a CRT class offered at OHS as a post-secondary class through Minnesota State Mankato. It will not be offered this semester because of a staffing issue at MSU. I also want to point out that the writing and editing of this article are professional. Just very, not just factually accurate, but just written in a way that is readable and right. This is what journalism is. Joanne Egbert's daughter took the class but couldn't attend Monday's meeting. In a letter her mother read, Elise Egbert said, "The class had a positive impact on my life and taught us to form our own opinions." Natalie Hurtado and Jenna Dallenbach, and I can't even begin to say that name, also took the CRT class through MSU. Hurtado called it one of the most important classes I have ever taken and holds us responsible for our own actions. Sarah Zimmerman, though, called it a vile Marxist ideology that's being taught in our schools. This is a perverted, rewritten history, she said, telling the board members to educate the students, not indoctrinate them. Marlene Nelson, who has been addressing who's been addressing school boards and city councils for decades, took exception to how she said some of the board members were standing during the Pledge of Allegiance. I saw some of you with your left hand behind your back. That's a strange stance. I was told that meant you aren't proud of your country. If that's the case, there's a jet waiting on a runway somewhere for you. Feel free to take it. Marlene is a very sweet lady. I would take exception with what she said here. Um, I would say that part of living here is a wonderful way of expressing dissent, and it's a well established tradition. Um, and I would love to engage with people like this. Not that anybody on the board engages with anybody. Nelson then called CRT a communist Marxist agenda. Rebecca Moore, who has 5 biracial children, 3 still in the district, had a suggestion. The problem is not CRT. The problem is racism, she said. Let's start saying that. Just saying, because something is uncomfortable doesn't mean it's wrong. It seems like equity is only a problem when it comes to race. Superintendent Jeff Elstead, who came under fire a few times during the public forum, said after the meeting that he respects people's opinions, even though they might be divergent from my own. It's always good to hear different perspectives. No comment. Though some criticize his call for equity, Elstead said for him, it's just giving every student what they need to be successful. We're providing unique opportunities, not just assuming everyone's going to college. I'm committed to the students, he said. I want the same thing both sides commented on here tonight, and I want equity centered on love for the students like everyone else. We could have a conversation about all of the comments that were made during the public forum. We could have a conversation about pro CRT people. We could have a conversation about the board's position that they don't teach CRT. They do. We have evidence that they're teaching it. They may not be teaching it under CRT, but they are teaching it. There's a very clear misunderstanding on the part of the pro CRT people of what CRT is. Equity is another word for CRT, and equity is not just giving people tools to be successful. Equity is, we'll have that different conversation. That's a completely different. I want to continue to laud Kay for her accuracy and her unbiased journalistic work. Kay, I don't know your politics. I don't know your socio-cultural views, but what I want to say is you did a phenomenal job. And we need about 1,500 more of you just in Southeast Minnesota alone. And the other thing that I want, people to understand is I looked at Kay and she said, well, I disagree with you that press should be removed from the room. And I said, Kay, and I completely understand that. And the same thing that I told the young lady from the Owatonna People's Press on Twitter, I told Kay, I would die for your freedom of the press. We need a free press, but we need a honest and factual and true dealing with writing and reporting. And so when I said maybe we should ask the cabinet and the press to step out, it was a hyperbolic statement designed and directed to make the point that we the people are here and we will be seen and we will be heard, and these others who are only here because they're getting paid to be here because it's part of their job should give up their seats for everyone else. Kay and Rick from the Owatonna, the Steele County Times, you do a phenomenal job. And the fact that you do not demonstrate a bias in your reporting is worthy of praise. And quite frankly, here in our culture and our society today, here in the Midwest, in the current times, what you do in your journalism at the Steele County Times is bordering on heroic, because it would be so easy to do what the Owatonna People's Press does, which is misconstrue, intentionally misinform their readers. So huge praise for the Steele County Times and that entire journalistic conglomerate that makes up the Steele County Times group. And Kay, just once again, phenomenal work. You did phenomenal work, and I just want that to be known. That was amazing what you did. You handled it perfectly. I couldn't have asked for better reporting. And so thank you. And on behalf of the parent groups there who oppose critical theory, we want to thank you for that. So, and my hat's off. My hat's off. So, until next time, people, don't worry about being safe. Don't worry about being comfortable. Fight for liberty and freedom, and sic semper tyrannis.